what story does this result tell about Liverpool and Spurs?
Well, I think in general, again, I mean, so much had happened, right? I mean, Liverpool will take it with that last goal. I can only imagine the reaction of Jurgen Klopp if it stayed 3-3, right? But I think it summarizes both teams. I mean, on one hand, you have Spurs, a very much second half team, always home or away, right? Always starting slow throughout the season for the most part. I don't want to mention just recently, right? I mean, here are Spurs that conceded 6 or 5 after 21 minutes. I think it was 2-0 after 6 here, 2-0 after 5, and all of that. So very similar. They haven't learned their lesson, and you have a Liverpool that can't control the midfield, and defensively they're very, very spotty as well. Both teams are very much capable of scoring goals. 65 for Liverpool, 63 for Spurs. But defensively, I mean, look at Spurs, 57 conceded, and even Liverpool. Think about how great they were in those 2 or 3 seasons where they're fighting Manchester City. I mean, 42 conceded goals. So it really was the story when you think about it. Just the initial one. But then you have to kind of, separate the two teams and think, how can Liverpool at Anfield be cruising 3-0? Haven't they learned the lesson watching last week or a few days ago, Manchester United, who were cruising away 2-0 and Spurs came back 2-2. And here we really had we had the same story if it wasn't for Diogo Jota, who's been in incredible form, scoring very, very late to make it 4-3 because of a massive mistake, again, this time from Lucas Moura. I felt so bad for him because he hasn't played, he's been injured, just comes on and makes such a massive mistake. So it summarizes the two teams, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like a punch to the gut after Tottenham was able to come back to tie. But I want to focus on what you said defensively and what those first few minutes of the match means for Tottenham, because they've conceded 20 goals in the first 25 minutes of Premier League matches this season. That's the most in the Premier League. Of course, no surprise there. And Janusz, you've talked about how weak this defense is, of course, for Tottenham. What were they missing in those first few minutes where Liverpool, like you said, were cruising?
Well, concentration and mentality. I mean, it is a weak mentality, right? And Antonio Conte has talked about that, a little bit earlier. Again, I don't know if he should, but he did, and it was true. I mean, I've mentioned what happened against Newcastle. Here, I'm looking the first goal, Pedro Porro. I mean, absolutely unaware of Curtis Jones on the far post. I mean, it's a simple play. All you have to do is look at your shoulder. I'm looking at the, at the second goal. I mean, it's just the same, and you can go on. Eric Dier doesn't follow the man, and Luis Diaz scores that goal. Christian Romero didn't stay with Luis Diaz as well. So I mean, Christian Romero is a World Cup winner, right? I mean, he should know better. Eric Dier has played now. I remember him playing in Portugal with Sporting Lisbon. I mean, this is a player that's played in the European Championships, World Cup, English international. So that's been the story. And if it's Ben Davies or anybody that comes in, it's that today was Ben Davies. Certainly a defense that has been struggling the entire season, making incredible mistakes that probably players in lower leagues don't make as often as Tottenham has done in the whole season, but in particular in the last few games.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.